Well, good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to the farm. Not actually at the farm right now. I'm actually in my pickup at the Costco parking lot. Trying to sneak in a little early Christmas shopping. But anyways, what better time to talk about lambing season and breeding season and how that all comes to shake down on our farm and what may be an option for you. So one of our viewers, Paul Sims, was asking the question today about whether or not we keep ewe lambs as replacement ewes and what age we breed them at, and whether or not doing it at 7 months, which, you know, some sources say is an option, is a good idea or not. So to answer the question short, yeah, we do keep ewe lambs back as replacements, and in some cases we do actually breed them within the first year. We're shooting for that 8 to 9 month kind of range, and I say it's a range, it's not a hard and fast rule. The conditioning of that animal and the size of that animal is probably more important than specifically the age. So what do you think? Should ewes be bred to produce their first lambs, you know, at under a year? Or should you alternately wait and go a full year cycle and then catch them the next fall or whatever, right? There's a lot of different factors to consider, a lot of pros and cons that come with each of those things. And it really comes down to not a personal choice, but an actual legitimate scientific breeding decision that you're gonna have to make. So if you've got good management and you got good nutrition, you can absolutely successfully get a lamb crop off of a ewe that's under a year old. If you don't have good nutrition, you don't have good management, you can have an absolute disaster on your hands. You can have stillbirths, you can have lamb abandonment, you can have prolapse. In some cases you can have loss of the ewe. Now, breeding ewe lambs really allows you to exploit the reproductive capability by an additional year on the ewe. So if you're thinking over the life cycle of the ewe, by the time she's 6 years old, you're probably looking to down the road she goes, right? So if you can get 6 lamb crops off that ewe as opposed to 5 lamb crops off that ewe, in terms of actual percentage of returns on that animal, it's significant, right? Now, oftentimes with ewe lambs, you're only going to get a single, but hey, one extra is still one extra, right? As opposed to nothing. So now one of the most compelling reasons to do this, aside from actually getting an additional lamb, is genetic improvement. So if you're introducing a new ram, or you've got a good ewe that throws really good lambs, and you're trying to get those genetics quickly integrated into your flock and quickly get them bred in here, you know, in a short order of time, it makes sense to try and breed under that year. What you have to be aware of, however, is that ewe lambs have lower conception rates. They like I said earlier, they throw a lot more singles. They give birth to fewer offspring. They produce less milk. So even if they produce a single, you know, that single lamb won't reach the same weight that off of a mature ewe a set of twins would reach oftentimes, right? They're more likely to experience problems at birthing. So whether it's 4 o'clock in the morning and they're lambing in a dark corner of the barn and then abandoning that lamb, or it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a windy winter's day and they're lambing on the windward side of a hay bale in the middle of a snowstorm, there's just some problems that come with it, right? Now, of course, there's also some issues with growth. So a ewe lamb that hasn't reached full maturity, and then you throw a lamb into her and she's trying to grow herself and grow a lamb. So she's not going to catch up now until almost her 3rd year, essentially. So that's a pretty valid reason why a lot of producers, they wait until they've gone that full year and then they breed them, because their full maturity, their ability to sustain a lamb, grow a lamb, have less issues with birthing. Sometimes it's just a less headache, right? A lot less inputs, a lot less headache. Sometimes when you think about what a lamb is worth, by the time it goes to market, $300 and some or whatever, sometimes it's just not worth the headache to do it. So if you're going to do it, if you're going to keep a ewe lamb back and you're going to breed her within the first year, when is the right time to do it? So some material out there says 7 months. Some material out there says 8 months. Some material out there gives some specific weights. Kind of throw that out the window, really, because different breeds of sheep are all going to have different weights. The conditioning of that animal, whether it's a single, whether it's a twin, whether it's a triplet, is all going to have a factor, right? I'm not going to keep and try to breed a 40-pound triplet lamb that's 8 months old. I'm just not going to do it, right? So you really got to think about what's the size of that animal. And a really good rule of thumb to use is 65 to 75% of the mature ewes weight is kind of the earliest that you can look to breed them, right? So if you're looking at, you know, the average weight of your mature ewes in your flock is say 100 pounds, and you've got a replacement ewe lamb that is, you know, 7 to 9 months old, whatever the age. Again, the age is not the most important thing, but it's over 65 pounds. That would be a good, okay, yeah, sure, I can get away with doing it. If it's under that, it's probably too early. You're going to lead, you know, going to end up with issues with ewe growth. You could end up with twin lamb disease. You could end up with stillbirth. You could end up with prolapse. You could end up with lamb abandonment, which lamb abandonment happens even quite a bit, even in the, you know, 9 to 10 month old. Even just the first yearling ones, they're a little bit dumb. They don't always know what to do it. But the mature ones that have gone a full cycle, they generally tend to be better mothers than the, you know, Maury Povich teen mom sheeps. So if you're trying to get them to a decent weight in order to introduce a ram to them in time so that you're not lambing in July or August or whatever have you, you're probably gonna have to throw a little bit of grain at them. Now, how much is too much? Well, it's not like a market lamb where you're gonna throw as much grain as, you know, basically they can digest at them in order for maximum gain. A fat ewe lamb is kind of a recipe for disaster. They got to be well conditioned, absolutely, maybe a little on the plump side, but you don't want them to be fat. And the reason for that, so there's two reasons for that. So you get fattening around the birth canal. There are obviously birthing issues. They can lead to prolapse, and that can lead to the loss of the lamb, the loss of the ewe. Everything's just a disaster, right? And secondarily, you can have fattening in the udder. So might throw a really nice lamb, but then, well, that's no good because it can't feed it because it's not making any milk. Now, if you're looking at size specifically, there's a couple other factors you got to consider. Mostly genetics, right? So birth averages of the sire and the dam. So do they throw, you know, good sized lambs, but also birth average rates. So are they throwing singles? Are they throwing doubles? Are they throwing triplets? Are they throwing quads? If you're throwing a bunch of triplets into a ewe lamb, that's, I mean, it's unlikely that it's going to happen, but certainly if you're trying to breed a replacement ewe lamb that came up as a single and you're picking her because of her size, well, why is she that size? She's that size because she had no competition, not because she's ready to go. It's just because she's been well fed. And then she may also produce singles her whole lifetime, right? So shoot for the twins, shoot for the triplets, but don't overtax your ewe lambs. Now, another interesting fact about ewe lambs is, well, ewes in general actually, is that a crossbred ewe is more likely to be ready to breed earlier than a purebred ewe. Now, I don't know why that is, but we have Dorset and we have Suffolk cross, and so it is more likely for them to breed successfully in that first year than any of the purebred Suffolks or the purebred Dorsets. I don't know what the science is behind that. It's just a thing. Okay, so say you've settled on, we've got some ewe lambs, we got them set aside, and we're gonna shoot for it. We're gonna be, you know, 8 months. We got some nice plump ewe lambs. We're gonna do this. Now, at what point in time do you introduce them to the ram? Well, what I wouldn't recommend doing is introducing them at the same time as your mature ewes. The mature ewes and the ewe lambs are not going to be able to compete at the same rate with each other. So the mature ewes are going to have a higher pheromone level and they're going to attract more attention from the ram than the ewe lambs will. So the mature ewes will get bred first, no different than at the feed trough, right? It's kind of a pecking order. There's that in the bedroom too, right? So oftentimes you're better off to just introduce the ram to the mature ewes, and then when he's done with them, then go introduce him in with the ewe lambs. Alternately, if you have two rams, like we have two rams, so I could introduce one set to one set of ewes and one set to another set of ewes. You could do that too, just so there's no competition. Now you might wonder why you don't really want the competition What you don't want to be doing is on the 15th of March have 17 mature ewes all lambing at the same time. And what are you doing? Well, you're stuck trying to deal with a ewe lamb that's just lambed, and she's had a set of twins and she doesn't want either one of them, and one of them's doping, the other one doesn't want to suck, or one comes out backwards, or half her back end is hanging out. So take your problems and just, okay, we're gonna have lambing season, and then we're gonna have some of these problem ewes over here, and just deal with them kind of on their own in a little bit of quiet time. Now, selecting your ewe lambs is important in terms of the size, but of course selecting your ram in terms of size is also important, right? So don't throw big hoss at your ewe lambs and try to split them open. Like, have some consideration for the ewe lambs, right? Anybody that's big up in the chest and the front shoulders, or like a real big butch ram that throws, 15, 16 pound lambs, not a good time to throw at your teenagers, right? Now, all ewes have higher nutritional needs in the month leading up to breeding. They have higher nutritional needs while they're trying to grow a lamb, and then while they're lactating in the first few months, they have higher nutritional needs, as opposed to just the last few months of summer when you kick them out to pasture and they just kind of figure it out by themselves, right? So during breeding, during lactating, higher nutritional needs. With ewe lambs, it's even more important because, again, they're trying to also not only grow the lamb inside of them, but they're also still trying to grow themselves, right? So they can need up to like 25% more feed, more nutrition. So things like mineral programs, things like protein content, things like good quality hay, all very, very important. A little bit of extra grain goes a long way. And the other thing, unfortunately, you really got to watch them for is parasite loads. So ewe lambs that are losing body conditioning because they're trying to grow a lamb are much more susceptible to parasites. So you may have to, drop a couple hits of Ivomec. I mean, that's something that you're going to have to do on a case-by-case basis. I don't advocate for treating the entire flock. I advocate for treating on a case-by-case basis, because if you treat everybody and somebody doesn't have something, you just build up resistance to medications, right? So just that's something definitely to watch for in your ewe lambs. We've definitely experienced that on our farm, breeding replacement ewe lambs, that they are more susceptible to worms, and you do have to treat them. And it will hit 2 or 3 of them almost every year. And boy, oh boy, can that ever knock the conditioning out of them in a hurry. Here's one thing you really can't do, and let's get away with this twice. You can't do it back to back. So a ewe lamb should never be selected as a replacement ewe lamb. And the reason for that is they just really can't make weight. If mom's already at 65% of the total weight, then by the time that second generation of ewe lamb comes up, you're going to be more in the 45 to 50% range. And so those ewe lambs, they're even going to struggle to make market weight unless you're chucking a whole pile of grain at them. So wouldn't recommend ever trying to keep the ewe lamb of a ewe lamb as a breeding replacement. That's a good time to just rotate that out and pick a different candidate. Anyways, you can see, just to summarize, I mean, yes, it's possible. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you can be successful at it. But like anything else in farming, you're going to reap what you sow without any kind of guarantees. So if you put in extra work, if you're extra vigilant and you have a little bit more attention where it's needed, you definitely can have a very good success rate with this. But if you let it slip, or maybe you're not as vigilant, or you don't get up and do that midnight check, it can ultimately lead to disaster. So, I mean, they say if you're going to have livestock, you're going to have dead stock. And this is one reason why, if you try to push the boundaries, you better be prepared to do the work. Otherwise, you're just going to have some negative outcomes. Anyways, I hope you found the video useful and informative. If you did, hit like, hit subscribe, share it with your friends. And I hope you're having a fantastic day. We'll see you tomorrow.